It's Friday, July 21st. Our panelists today, legal expert Frank Ward and political consultant Stan McDonald. I'm Dale Jackson, and you're watching Yellowhammer TV Live. Lots to discuss today. I'll tell you, we've got some legal experts with us, so we'll be discussing the O.J. Simpson case. Yeah, that's coming. And we'll also get into whether or not Donald Trump has turned a corner on this whole Russia thing. But right now, let's get to the headlines. It has been a pretty intriguing 48 hours involving former Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions. He's now the Attorney General. The President of the United States, his boss, speaking to the, quote, failing New York Times, has decided to say that he would not have chosen Jeff Sessions. And a lot of people have speculated that Jeff Sessions might walk away or be fired. Yesterday, Jeff Sessions held a press conference and said he will stay as long as it is appropriate to do so. Let's go first to Stan McDonald. You're a political consultant. You're advising Donald Trump. He's got all these issues happening, health care, the Russia investigation goes on. Do you tell him, hey, why don't you pick a fight with your Attorney General?
No, you don't. You say that that type of infighting or that kind of airing something like that out publicly is only going to make the situation worse.
And this situation has been made worse, and here we are again discussing another piece of infighting inside the Trump administration. Why would Sessions stay in this situation? He was in from the very beginning. He was the first senator on board, and now he's sort of being thrown under the bus like he generated this problem. Why would he stay?
Well, he might would stay because it's just Trump being Trump. Possibly he may say that to himself, but I'm actually of the view that he probably will go. I don't think he's going to quit tomorrow or the next day because it will be too closely associated with this. But I believe he's probably looking at his options right now, and I'd be surprised if he sticks around more than 3 or 4 months.
Wow. So here's, I guess, another question. If he were to go, and all the chaos that's happening, plus you got John McCain out of Senate for a while, is there any way anyone else can get confirmed to this position as Attorney General? Frank, is this one of the reasons why he has to stay on? Because Trump doesn't have the love of the Senate even amongst Republicans right now. Does Sessions have to stay? And maybe that's one of the reasons he stays.
That very well may be part of the thought process. I mean, this is crazy. It's unprecedented. It's one couldn't imagine anyone other than Donald Trump starting this type of fight with.
So he starts a fight with his own Attorney General. The conversation now is about Russia, about should he have recused himself. You're a lawyer. I mean, in this situation, is the recusal appropriate?
I think so. Now, I'm not super familiar with that area of law. Back when he recused himself, he said he had sought expert legal advice and had been advised to do so. I know there's been a lot of back and forth as to whether or not that's was actually required. I think there was an editorial in the National Review indicating that they didn't think he was required to, but who knows?
If he does resign, Stan, if he resigns, who would take this job? I mean, and because if he's pushed out, doesn't that throw, again, just like firing Comey and all these other things, doesn't that just cast a lot of doubt all over this whole thing again and further move the Russia story into this realm of where it looks like something crazy is going on?
Well, first off, who would take the job? There's plenty of people who would.
I mean, I guess.
All right.
Are you throwing your hat in the ring?
Are you offering? I would accept it myself, yeah. Look, Donald Trump is going to have these kind of things surrounding him till the day he leaves office. That's just the way he is. I think he likes to create chaos. I believe he believes he can manage the chaos. He's the author of the chaos. But let me just say this, to your previous question, though. I personally think that Jeff Sessions should not have recused himself. And I think that Donald Trump has a view of governing where he believes that what he's doing right now is politics is a contact sport. And Jeff Sessions basically just said, I don't want to get my uniform dirty. He took what he considered to be the high road, and that's why people love him, and that's his reputation. But at the same time, this is all out, I hate to say war because nothing is war except war,
right.
But this is all out heavy-duty politics. And Trump feels like that Jeff just, stepped out of the way just at the right time when here comes the fastball, and he needed him here for this. So I basically understand Trump on this myself.
Well, Trump seems to think that Sessions solely works for him as opposed to for the American people, and I think that Sessions views it very differently, and I think that's a big part of it.
I think Jeff's right about that. Yeah.
Frank?
I was going to say, I agree with what Stan was saying about Donald Trump. It's understandable that he feels this way, but don't go on in an interview with the New York Times and say this. This is something you say in private to your advisors, to your confidants. It's not something that you go out and just broadcast. This guy can't get out of his own way.
Yeah, I agree. We'll talk a little bit more about whether or not this whole Russia thing has turned a corner based on that interview and some other things going on. But let's move on to the next issue. In the state of Alabama, every year, the Business Council of Alabama has a little meet and greet, a meeting where they get together and they talk to legislators of both parties, and they basically lay out what their agenda is, what they would like to see done in the next legislative session. They bring all the lawmakers down to the beach. And Bill Holtzclaw, a state senator, one of 4 individuals who wasn't invited this year, said, I know where the beach is if I want to go. Stan, the reason that Holtzclaw and Cam Ward, another state senator from Shelby County, Jim Patterson, and another individual whose name escapes me at this particular moment, weren't invited is because, believe it or not, the autism bill. At least that's the speculation here. Mm-hmm. There was an autism bill put forward in the Alabama legislature that passed that mandated coverage for autism in kids with autism, and there's a whole bunch more to it. But the BCA was adamantly against this. But they lost across the board. Yeah. One person, Tripp Pittman, voted against it, but everyone else voted for it. Why would they pick the fight with these guys over this particular bill? Does this make any sense to you?
No, it doesn't.
Especially when it was wildly popular.
It was wildly popular, but let me say this, Dale, and I heard you talk on your radio show about this. It's a wildly popular bill, but I'm just sort of pleased to see the BCA, I won't say for once, but I feel like saying for once, taking a stand against or for limited government. Right. Now, I understand the entire legislature, except for Tripp, voted for the thing, and so I'm not trying to relitigate that. But I don't know what their behavior is on this, why they took it so personally.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if you ask Tripp Pittman about this now that he's running for Senate, he'll tell you that everywhere he goes, this gets brought up because he was paying. And again, I hate to be this guy. I think Tripp Pittman was right. His argument was essentially, this is Obamacare. You're mandating insurance coverage on this one particular issue, and you can pick and choose what you want. But again, it's just like Obamacare too, where if you provide something, people want it, especially if you can force someone to do it. Frank, the BCA, the Business Council of Alabama, has said, this isn't about this. This isn't, why pick this fight? If you're a lobbying group and you want legislators on your side, why single these 4 guys out and pick this fight?
I have no idea why they chose to do that. I don't know. It may have to do more with. And I'm speculating. I don't have any inside knowledge here, but it may have more to do with just personality.
It seems it may be sending a message. I mean, maybe this Perhaps. Is a shot across the bow here. The real message, I think, comes around campaign time with campaign donations, because a lot of these individuals, these 4 guys, are right in the wheelhouse of everything else that the BCA would want. So I guess we have to look at campaign donations, Frank? Is that where we'd have to go later?
That very well may be the thought.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on. Again, we've got lawyers here with us, so it's a good opportunity for me to ask a bunch of legal questions because I don't know anything about this stuff. I'm just a talk show host. Terror in Alabama, $250,000. That's the bond for an individual, Aziz Saeed, in North Alabama. He had said, I'm going to come out and I'm going to practice beheadings. I'm going to try to blow up police officers. He is he is a wannabe ISIS terrorist. And there are a lot of questions about whether or not it's safe to let this guy out. His judge said, wait a second, this is just it's a terror case. There's no reason not to bond him out. There's been no murder or actual terror. Frank, again, this is a courtroom question, and I know this isn't the area of law you practice, because who practiced terror law, but the reality is $250,000 for a guy who said he wanted to blow up police officers and was practicing cutting people's heads off. People like me see this and go, why would you let this guy out of jail? Why do you have to let this guy out? Why do you have to let this guy bond out?
Well, we have a constitution with certain rights, and I believe it's Section 16, I may be wrong there, of the Alabama Constitution. It gives an almost requires bail in every case. There are exceptions for capital cases and where you have basically a huge flight risk and imminent danger to the public. And you go, well, this may be imminent danger, right? But he's not facing a capital charge. This is all stuff allegedly he was planning on doing.
He was going to murder people. He was going to kill cops.
Right.
He was going to cut their heads off. He was going to...
No, it's very disturbing. I would say that the judge that did this is a very conservative judge.
Right. And that may be why it's so high. I mean,
that is, and it is. It actually, if you look at the schedule, the typical schedule for bails, it's exceedingly high.
Stan, I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but why are the feds not involved in this? Why is this like a local judge? I mean, am I misreading this? Doesn't it seem like something that we would see on a higher level here?
Well, that is a good question, Dale. First off, everything was committed here. There was nothing out of state that we can tell, although we don't know anything about communications you might have with other guys. I really don't know that. But I would say, back to the bail question, part of the Eighth Amendment also, it requires that it implies, and really one of the elements that judges understand, is that you can't use bail for punishment. You can't say to yourself or make a public statement that the worse the crime is, then I'm going to really jack it up and up it. It really is supposed to be confined to the purpose of what it's there for, and that is just make sure that he doesn't leave.
And so basically the idea here is he has to go out, and I think I read this, with bond it's a little bit different. The first part of it's a $100,000 cash bond. So that means someone's got to put up $100,000, and that individual is going to want to make sure this guy stays here. So it'd be interesting to see how all that part of this plays out. Moving to another courtroom, and again, I knew these guys were going to be here, so I wanted to ask these questions. What is our obsession with O.J. Simpson? We are talking almost 20 years. I remember this, and I was a young man. I was in high school when all this was going on the first go-around. I believe he got away with murder. We can stay away from that part here for a second. 9 years, Frank. 9 years for breaking in, and he actually got like 33 years or whatever, but for breaking in and trying to steal back his own property. There were guns involved holding him to his head. For him to get 9 years on that, how bad's his attorney? Is that not appropriate?
I hate disparaging other attorneys, and actually, I haven't. I remember watching. I think they rolled the big bubble TV in when I was in school. I remember watching that, and I haven't kept up with this, so I don't know all the circumstances that led to that. But I'm sure there was a certain element of this is our chance to punish him for what he got away with, for getting away with murder.
Stan, we talked about bonds not supposed to be used for punishment. Mm-hmm. Does a judge or a jury, do they look and say, even though they say, hey, don't take into account the fact that he murdered two people. Don't take any of that into account, but the jury goes, I'm going to take that into account. Wait, if you're his lawyer, I mean, you know that's coming, right?
Oh, you're so right. What this really highlights is the importance of the jury pool. But the jury pool obviously is to me why he got away with murder.
Yeah.
But the jury pool also is why they came back and tried to correct the situation. But you can't escape the necessity in the constitutional foundation of the jury. It just our founders intended it to be that way. These juries have a lot of power and discretion. And sure, that lawyer is hammering away at the law and saying you're not to consider this, you're not to consider that. But as long as they put human beings on a jury, then you're going to end up with these kind of
we hear a lot about jury nullification where the jury goes, yeah, this guy's guilty, but I'm not convicting this guy. Do you think it happens the other way where they're like, okay, he's guilty and I'm going to pound him?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a lawyer, Frank, do you like finagle a way to push that? I mean, is there a way to say, okay, he did some other stuff, let's get him on this, or do you just let the chips fall where they may?
Well, certainly. I mean, to an extent. I mean, obviously, you're bound by certain codes of ethics and things that you can't do, but you're always trying to present your case in the best light and create a situation where the jury finds a way to come to the conclusion you want them to come to.
Fair enough. Two legal experts here with us. I use that as an opportunity to ask those questions. Stay tuned. Yellowhammer TV Live, it continues. We'll talk about the Trump-Russia stuff, the latest, in detail, coming up next. Welcome back to Yellowhammer TV Live. We continue with Frank Ward, a legal expert and political consultant, Stan McDonald. We're going to talk about this Trump-Russia stuff. It kind of feels like, and Stan, I'll ask you this first, that we've turned a little bit of a corner here. I mean, I'm a big believer in the fact that I don't think that there was Trump and Putin sitting together and saying, okay, hack into her emails and then release them, and then I'm going to use them. And I don't think there's this big conspiracy. But I've said before, if you were guilty, what would you do different? Right. And there's not much you could do. 26% of the American public think this is a huge issue. I still think that's kind of a big number personally. But have we turned a corner here? I mean, are we gone to a different level of seriousness? We've seen the Comey situation take place. Now he's saying, you know, there's some times when I could look at Mueller and say, well, maybe he might have to go if he does this or that. The Sessions stuff now, the meeting with Don Jr., the fact that I can still rattle off more of these. Have we turned a corner here? Is this different now?
Well, I do think that the issue is going to stay with us and be with us because the Democrats have chose to make it an issue. And it's just going to bear upon, if they think it's working, if they think it's helpful to them, they'll keep it around. Now, I still just don't think it's an issue. I think that what I really believe is that people just don't really understand how much foreign countries hire big gun lobbyists these days. And you have Russian ambassadors, Russian lobbyists walking around up there as if they represent the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
So
you say all of that, and I tend to agree in the heart of what you're saying. But then again, now we've got the aides looking into Mueller, trying to find conflicts of interest. You have his spokespeople for this investigation, Trump's, quitting. You also have Trump, like I said, laying into Sessions. He warns Mueller against looking into the finances, which, I mean, like these big red flags that seem to be going off. And now we've got reports, and let's take them for what they are, reports of looking at pardons and trying to figure out, just, he's curious about what the pardon process is. I mean, Frank, red flags. I mean, you represent guilty people all the time, I'm sure.
Of course not.
Okay, but when these things, these are red flags, right? That he's setting off accidentally if it's not
doing everything wrong, everything. And I don't know how deep it goes. It may turn out that it's looks on the surface much worse than it is, or it could be. Who knows at this point? But I do think his actions, Trump's actions, have done nothing but exacerbate and play into the hands of those who are opposed to him. If this guy could just get out of his own way, but we know he can't.
Yeah, it's like, stop talking. Just stop. I mean, you just stop talking about this. Someone comes to you and say, hey, that's under investigation. I'm not going to have this conversation. Stan, is that what you would advise him if he was your client?
Yes, I would. I would advise him that. But at the same time, this guy, and I've said it before on this show, he is going to be what he is. I think I said yesterday, it'd be a useless position to be his political consultant. It's probably pretty useless to be his attorney, at least in matters of politics. Now, he probably listened to his attorneys about contract issues and building buildings and things like that. But when you've been as successful as he's been thus far, he's going to look at these guys in the room and say, who are y'all?
I'm the president. I mean,
yeah.
He like we said earlier, he talks to Sessions like Sessions works for him. And he does. He's a cabinet level official, but he's also over the Justice Department. And there comes a time when you have to look into things that involve the administration and the recusal stuff. For years we heard, Lynch should have recused herself or Holder should have recused herself, and now, or himself, and now Sessions did, and now he's mad about that. Frank, we turned a corner on the Comey thing, and then it's like we turned another corner here recently when he's talking to the New York Times about this. This seems bigger every single day. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I think the advising him to stop talking is important.
I think to jump on a point Stan was making about it being pretty useless to be his attorney and Donald Trump's success. One, okay, the guy's wealthy. He also had a lot coming in, and I wouldn't say that he's the greatest businessman. He's left in his wake a ton of people who feel like they got cheated, but let's go ahead and just take it for granted. Let's accept the point that he is a successful businessman. Okay, he's successful in one area, in real estate, but his ego is so huge that it has blinded him. I've been successful in this area, therefore I don't really need to listen to advice of experts. Well, guess what? Running the country, being president, is a job that's too big for one person. And that's dangerous, in my opinion.
Yesterday, during the OJ trial, the commentators afterwards were all attorneys like you guys. And after OJ gave his speech, they all came on like, "What is he doing? You're not going to relitigate this thing. You're sorry." That's basically it. And there's a long story where I've been brought before a grand jury, and I went in there and I was like, "Sorry, my bad." That was what he knew. Trump doesn't do that either. OJ went out there, Stan, and was defiant. Said, "I didn't do anything wrong," essentially. And Trump, this seems to be his thing as well. I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm just going to choose something. During the interview with the New York Times, he says, "Well, yeah, maybe some Russians bought some condos, but I don't think we should look into that. Mueller doesn't need to do that. And if he does, maybe I'll fire him." I see you closing your eyes because you're like, "Why?"
Well, look, here's the thing about Trump. He's what we elected. We didn't elect a lawyer. We didn't elect a politician. We elected a multi-millionaire. Now, this guy's used to working unilaterally. Yeah. He's used to getting what he wants. He's used to having people around him saying yes, or you're not going to be around him much longer. And that's who we put in the Oval Office. And that's what we got. Now, some people right now are glad of it, but there are going to be things to continue to occur that are going to be the downside of putting a multimillionaire in office.
Hey, it's funny. The President of the United States is being told no more than when he was the CEO of this big company, and it's kind of bothering him. Okay, I think we've turned a corner. We've talked enough about that. When we come back, we'll wrap up the week with what's the biggest news of the day. Stay tuned. It's Yellowhammer TV Live. Welcome back to Yellowhammer TV Live. At this portion of the program, we discuss what the biggest news of the day is, for us at least. Frank, why don't you start us off here? What's the biggest news of the day? What's the most important thing happening?
The most important thing that's happening is this weekend is my and my wife's anniversary. So happy anniversary, Jeanette.
Get those points.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay.
I think there's a survey out that says that something like, and I'm sure this is true on the other side of the political spectrum, that something like 50% of Democrats, when surveyed, said that it would be a huge impediment to their friendship with someone if they found out that person had voted for Trump.
Wow.
And I thought, holy moly, I mean, that's ridiculous.
As a Democrat, the fact that we're friends is rather amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that way.
I agree. Stan, what's the biggest news of the day for you?
Huge story. Hugh Freeze out as head coach at Ole Miss. He's resigned as of last night. And, you look how big and important football is in Alabama, as it should be. And, he beat Alabama twice. This is a guy who's had a significant impact in the SEC, but he's out now.
We're down to 2 coaches in the SEC that have beaten Nick Saban. And all the other coaches haven't beaten Nick Saban. It's so far and away ridiculous how good they've been, and that guy's worth every single penny. Now, the number one story for me, the biggest news of the day, comes from Bill Nye. Yeah, Bill Nye, Bill Nye the science guy, who's essentially famous because his name rhymes with the science guy. He's He's not a scientist as they portray him. But he said something very interesting the other day. He said that older people need to die. That's how you save the environment. Older people need to die. Now, Frank, again, I know you, and I know you're a huge Bill Nye fan.
No, actually, I don't know that much about Bill Nye.
How old is he?
How old is he? He's got to at least be in his 60s.
He's 61. But so can't he go and do the world a favor?
I think the way this is being portrayed is ridiculous. I mean, the comment basically, what he said was true, that opinions will change. So he's not calling on people to die.
Okay, Frank, don't be reasonable here, okay? Come on. Thanks for watching. You're watching Yellowhammer TV Live.